Just the time that Curtis is not here, I am the vice chair. So if there's no objections, call the meeting of the Kansas Technical Education Authority Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. There was in your materials, there were the minutes of last month, or last time we met. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
That's right. So move.
I'll second.
And seconded by Todd. Okay, we have a move and second. Anyone opposed? If not, okay, motion passes. The discussion agenda. Do we need to approve that, or can we just move right in? Well, let's just go ahead and move right in. And this is really small on my screen, but I think we have Elaine Frisbee doing a presentation on the cost model this morning. Is Elaine ready to go?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good morning, everyone. I think Randy is sharing your screen. If you'll stop sharing, Randy, I will go ahead and share my screen. Thank you. See if I can get this going. Got a little bit of technical difficulties this morning. Can you see my screen there?
Yes.
We're good. Okay, excellent. I'm going to run through some of as a refresher course on the instructional cost model before I present the actual calculations using the academic year 2025 enrollment data that will be used to distribute state funding for fiscal year 2027. So just as a reminder, back in 2007, when the Tech Ed Authority was first created, the concept was also that there be a new model created to identify colleges' expenses to deliver academic courses. And this was for Kansas resident students and not intended to address all the other things that have activities at a campus. So where they have a residence hall, or they have a bookstore, or a student union, or athletics, those things are outside the cost model. And I also like to emphasize for policymakers, there are annual inflationary adjustments that are applied throughout the elements of the cost model. So we've taken a look at all of the academic year 2027 data from the schools. Also on the expense side, of course, we'll go through those 4 elements, but on the revenue side, how are those expenses funded? As a reminder, for in-district students at the community colleges, it's a third, a third, a third, a third from students, a third from property tax, and a third from the state. For community college out-district students, so students from outside the county or the taxing district, but from within Kansas, and for all technical college students, it's 1/3 student, 2/3 state. And then we also use this cost model to calculate state aid for secondary students in Excel and CTE, and that is 100% state. And as the calculations rolled out, the funding for the expense side, and on the revenue side, on the graph there on the right, you can see the 2/3 in the blue for technical colleges, which turned out to be 42.4 million, and 21.2 million in student tuition. And then for the community colleges, you can see the extra layer of 39.9 million of property tax in the green. So that's how the actual dollars were calculated based on each individual student's residence. So on the expense side, we look at instructor costs, instructional support costs, we have institutional support costs, and then for tiered courses, we also have those extraordinary costs. And each course that each student enrolls in is aggregated, and the course rate is total to calculate the entirety of the cost model. And again, we have each of the 4 elements here, the 3 blue sections for the items that are applied to the non-tiered courses, and then adding on in the yellow, the extraordinary costs for the tiered courses. And then how do we get those bits of information? Some of it comes from the National Higher Ed Benchmarking Institute at Johnson County Community College. It just happens to be there here in Kansas. The technical college and community college's annual financial audits, that we get each year. We use that information as well. And then the reported information that they submit when Director Sharman Chambers works with the schools on providing all of the information that they use for their extraordinary costs. So just each of the elements, the instructional cost model, starting with the most important one, our instructors. So what are the college's costs for employing faculty? What are their salaries? What are their benefits? A few of our colleges do participate in the study at the National Higher Education Benchmarking Institute, and that is the information that we have used. It is based on actual reported costs. It is a national study, and not every one of our Kansas institutions participates in the study, but a few did last year. And then we've got the array of the different rates for instructors. Now for 2025 academic year, the non-tiered rate for faculty is $119. That is per credit hour. So for a 3-hour course, then it would be multiplied by 3, a 4-hour course multiplied by 4. And then we have those rates tiered across 6 different tiers as well. We have instructional support costs. So those colleges' costs associated with student services. You've got an admissions office, you've got a registrar, you have student financial aid staff, student life, a library, your program director, so a nursing program director, you might have a dean, depending on the size of the college, and then anything that's non-instructional beneficial to groups, external institutions. So that's what your public service mission that our colleges all have. And so for 2025 cost model data, the rate was increased 3.8% and is $55 per credit hour. And that comes directly from the college's annual financial audits. And those are the rates so we started out at $31 back in 2011, and we are now at $55 in 2025. Also, in support of the college's overhead costs, there are institutional support costs that they incur. So they have a president's office, a business office, you've got your IT functions, other expenses that benefit the entirety of the campus. So for this year, the rate is calculated at $67 per credit hour. And again, that information is just a formula based on the college's financial audits. And we have the array of rates there growing from 38 back in 2011 all the way back then to 67 this year. And then lastly, the fourth element for our tiered courses, these are those program-specific equipment, consumable supply, materials that our programs need. If you have a radiology program, you might have to have an X-ray machine, welding booths, food for your culinary programs, fuel for your CDL programs, latex gloves and healthcare programs, and so on. So there's a long list the Director Chambers works on with the institutions. Those costs are based on their reported data. Those are reported every 3rd year, so we do about a third a year, and they are adjusted annually in those years when they aren't reviewed directly. And again, we tier those course extraordinary cost rates into 4 groupings. Some of them are 0, but they do go up to $143 per credit hour. So just looking at non-tiered courses, which is the bulk of what our institutions deliver, you would, for a 3-hour course, you would have an instructor cost, instructional support costs, and the institutional support costs totaling $241 per credit hour. So if you have a 3-hour course, that would be $723. So each 3-hour non-tiered course generates a per student cost on the cost side of $723, and about half of that is attributable to the instructor, as what you would expect. So if you have 15 students in a class that's non-tiered in your Composition 101 class, that would generate $10,845 in the cost model for AY 2025. And the state share of those costs are then calculated based on the residency of those students. For our entirety of our institutions across the system, we had 770,000 credit hours for non-tiered courses, and that generates $97.4 million in costs. And then financing, so the other side of the ledger, of course, we've got our third, a third, a third for the different groups. We've mentioned that before. And then the 100% for our high school students in Excel and CTE. And as a reminder, high school students who aren't in Excel and CTE, but who take courses at the colleges, do then fall in either the in-district or out-district part of the model, either a third or 2/3, depending on their residency. So just as an example, John is an in-district student at a community college taking a computer information systems course enrolled in Applied Networking 1. That is the third, a third, a third, because he is from within the district. So it generates $286 in revenue for each of the three elements. Jane is a student at a technical college. So by definition, then they are out district students. So her wind energy technology class for small wind turbine is a tier rate 3. So that actually generates $710 in state aid versus $355 in student tuition, according to the model. And then lastly, if you are a student, a high school student in Excel and CTE, Jordan taking a tier 6 course in heavy equipment technology for fuel and exhaust systems generates $1767 in state aid. So just looking at last year's enrollment, so this is AY 2025. Just under 84% of the total credit hour production came from the community colleges and 16.3% of the technical colleges. Comparing tiered versus non-tiered, again, 70.6% of our courses or credit hour production came from non-tiered and 29% for tiered. Tiered courses at the community colleges, we'll get a little more detail by sector. They provided 68.8% of the entire tiered credit hour production, and the technical colleges, 31.2%. Looking at in-district versus out-district in total, it's roughly half and half, 53% out-district students, 47% in-district. If you exclude Johnson County, which is such a large driver of our student enrollments, of course, they're so much larger. That number is 2/3 out-district and 1/3 in-district. And then looking across the array of the 19 colleges, from the highest preponderance of tiered. So Hutchinson Community College last year provided, and I think they've been the leader in recent years, 2/3 of their courses are non-tiered, 1/3 is tiered, and then up to Allen County Community College had 12% of their credit hours were tiered. So you just see the array there across all 19 schools. And I do want to let folks know this document will be posted so it can be examined later if you want to provide further questions when we get to this with the full TEA meeting in 2 weeks. And a little bit easier to read, aren't as many technical colleges. You see the array there. So Salina Area Technical College provided 54% of their non-tiered, of their credit hour production was for non-tiered. And Washburn Tech provided the least amount in their credit hour production at 16% for non-tiered students. The preponderance of the college's enrollments of high school students has increased and has continued to increase. So for AY 2025, for the community colleges, 1/5, 20% last year of our credit hours were for high school students. That was 11.3% 10 years prior. The technical colleges are higher. They started at 20%. Now they are at 39.5% in AY 2025. And then applying the cost model calculations to the state aid. So just as a reminder, of course, the application of this cost model began many years ago. And for many years, many of you will recall, we had a gap in state funding. We would calculate the state share of costs for the tier colleges, but the legislature did not fully fund that. And for many years, we had provisos in place that just basically said, hold everybody steady, basically. Don't try to account for big increases or decreases in enrollment. So we would have lengthy provisos and appropriation language that just basically would say, hold everyone basically steady. In 2022, now we're almost in 4 years in now, we're 3 years in. The 2022 legislature launched a new path to fully adopting the cost model for purposes of state aid. So in the appropriation bill, they did hold harmless that first year. We had a 3-year movement toward adopting the cost model. So in year one, which was fiscal year 2023, any college that would have lost money by fully adopting the model just kept their same funding. But if you had growth in enrollment, your new funding was recognized. In the year two, then, it was a 50% hold harmless. And then by year three, which was last year, fiscal year 2025, the full adoption of the cost model was done. Now, in all 3 of those years and moving forward for what we're calculating for fiscal year 2026, where we have calculated and distributing for 2026 and what we're calculating for 2027, we are applying a 3-year average. So in 2025, that 3-year average looked at 2021, 2022, and 2023 enrollments. So looking at fiscal year 2027, in total, state aid using that 3-year rolling average is going to be 5.3 million higher than 2026 for our tiered courses. So again, we used all the elements of the cost model as I just went over, and the residency status of Kansas resident students, who's in district, who's out district, so who's 2/3 state, who's 1/3 state. And then we looked at that, so that generates the AY 2025 calculated state share total, which totals 78.85 million. You average that back with 24 and 22 to get your 3-year average. And then you compare that to how the allocations were done in that same manner for 2026. So we do have schools with enrollment growth. And so we have an increase in expense for next year for just under 5.3 million. These are the tiered courses. And we have the non-tiered courses. So for non-tiered courses, the same cost model application would equate to 3.6 million higher in 2027 than in 2026. So these numbers, the 3.6 million and the 5.3 million, will be used to advocate with the legislature this session to say, if you want to fully adopt the cost model, as you have been doing, these are the amounts that you need to add to the budget for the Board of Regents to fund this. So that was a lot of me talking. I'm going to stop sharing, if I can find it, and see if there are questions. And I do also want to emphasize for the colleges, the production of the KED system is open and production. And so the colleges can go in, sign into our system and see what their very detailed numbers are, how those calculations were done.
So Elaine, this is Ray. This will be presented to the TEA meeting?
Yes, not in quite that much length, but yes.
No, I think that's good. The more that we know, the better we can make decisions. So I think that's fine. So the bottom line, the increase would be what, 8 point something million?
Yes, so I think 8.8 million
Okay,
in total, yes.
all right.
Elaine, this is Amber from Cloud. Thank you very much for that. Will this be posted kind of where the agendas are on KBOR site, the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
This is Dave. So the increase, we're talking about just for 2026?
This will be for fiscal year 2027, which will start this coming July 1.
Okay, that's what I meant. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Curtis, I think you're on now, so I started the meeting. I'll turn it back over to you. I certainly don't want to cut, I just certainly don't want to cut any questions off for Elaine.
I appreciate that. Were there any other questions? Thanks very much, Elaine.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I think we'll move on to our second discussion agenda item and hear from Director Brown about House Bill 2195.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Sneeden. The discussion agenda in your packet today includes the discussion of the TEA goal number 5 to work with Kansas technical colleges to develop and implement objectives that guide House Bill 2195 needs, which was enacted in 2025. In the background section, we've listed the text of the law and the part where the TEA input is required is in the middle, it's underlined and bolded. All expenditures from the Kansas Technical College Operating Grant Fund shall be for instruction and operation to meet target objectives established by the Post-Secondary Technical Education Authority for each technical college's region and the entire state. And here, technical colleges means the same technical colleges as in KSA 71-1802 and Washburn Institute of Technology, which is part of the Washburn University. In the weeks and days coming up to this meeting, there was much discussion on explanation of what instruction and operations might include. The technical college leadership and board staff have arrived at a more general definition than initially was proposed. So that is why this updated packet was released and updated on our website. So you will see the updated definition and the expenditure categories. And the recommendation for this item, and we have also representatives of technical colleges here, as well as our finance staff support. So if I get something wrong, please let me know. But our recommendation is to have technical colleges negotiate their proposed objectives, since everyone may have different needs in their region and for their institution, and propose those to this committee as well as the full TEA in the months of March through May. In March, 4 technical colleges would present their objectives, as well as in April, there would be 3 technical colleges. And after the review of this committee, the TEA then will review it in May. After that, in July, technical colleges will submit their reports to the board staff, and those reports will be presented to the Budget and Finance Committee in August and the full TEA later that month. There is a questionnaire, a form that's been proposed to be utilized in the process. So the first 4 columns then would be filled out at the proposal stage, and the measurable results would be filled out at the reporting stage. And I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Brown. Are there any questions?
This is Ray. Ray, help me understand the discussion of a different definition for operations. Is that a definition that was in the statute?
There is no definition in the statute, and that is one of the challenges, is to define it for everyone with different definitions in different fields, and each college, this is the definition was agreed upon, and I see that we have the technical college representatives here. If you would allow, that was definition developed with their support.
Yeah, I would be interested to know, and maybe I just overlooked what they settled on as far as the definition, and maybe an example or two.
Vera, could I ask you to scroll back to the previous page? Can you make that larger?
That's part of the
I think
problem.
that's, yeah, I think that's maybe. Can you see, uh, Ray, can you see the strikeout of operational parts? I mean, instructional costs, I think they're using the definition based on the cost model.
Oh, there, yeah.
Is that correct, Vera? Does that sound right?
Yes, we developed it with finance. It's based on what is included in the annual audits that come to us.
Okay. So one of the things that we had a concern from the technical college standpoint was in the strikeout, the original part, operational costs excluding capital improvements. For us, that is part of our operation. I mean, as a college, we have to have um, some physical structure to teach the courses and things like that. So we asked that they kind of review that, and we came together with the updated version right below it, which operational costs are administrative and infrastructure expenses necessary for the college functionally, but are not directly tied to teaching. So you've got basically teaching and non-teaching parts of the operations. That's what the statute itself talks about is instructional and operations costs. So we asked and they did a great job, I think, of kind of working with us on that. Uh, some of the things in the original strikeout, honestly, we didn't think should be included in the use of the technical college operating grant. Uh, we do have colleges that do have athletic programs, but we didn't think that that would be a good use of this kind of funding. So we wanted to make sure to not include that, so that wouldn't irritate people across the street there.
This is Dave. Is this a new procedure process or has there been some type of approval in the past and we're just changing it?
So the legislature codified in Bill 20, I think it was Senate Bill 2195, the funding for this will go through the process and the Board of Regents, the chair of the Board of Regents has to approve the process, the expenditure plan. And so the TEA is tasked with, I think we have to meet the stated goals of the TEA, which should be basically how, I mean, all the technical programs that we have meeting the goals of the TEA. That's why we were asking a few months ago about input on the goals for TEA this year to make sure that we could actually report to the legislature that we have aligned these with TEA goals. Does that
Thank-
help? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
So we have to report it. You have to review it. I think that's what Vera's saying in March and April. Each of the technical college will present, and I'm holding one up right here, a copy of what she was talking about at the bottom page. We'll have to line out what we want to expend, whether it's instructional or operational, and get that approval. I've got to take it to my local board, of course. They're in charge with larger expenditures, so I've got to get their approval before I can submit it to TEA. And all of the tech colleges are in the same responsibility. We all have to report how we're going to expend the base or the technical college operating grant. So this helps us, but it also helps you in terms of understanding. You know, we just went through the cost reimbursement model. That's the particulars for the instructional costs. There are extraordinary costs in there, of course, but some of those costs we have to tie back with this funding.
So this way, so what we were looking at on that page that was lined out, is that not a part of the House bill? Or not?
No,
It's not.
No.
Okay, that's what I don't know why it was confusing to me, because when I saw some things lined out, I wondered, well, who has the authority to decide? Let's just change the definition.
it's very undefined in the bill itself. It just says the words instructional and operational, or operation, instruction and operations, I think is actually what the bill says.
Okay.
So it's not well defined in the bill. So I think that's what Vera's trying to do, is give us a good working definition that everybody can go, this is what they're talking about from their standpoint and what is typically used. Is that correct, Vera?
Yes, so this was, the definitions are provided in order to define instruction operations because the law did not provide that explanation with it. And since the Technical Education Authority is charged with setting objectives and making sure that all expenditures are guided, so these definitions would then guide the expenditures and how the technical colleges are able to use those funds. And then the process would be the timeline and what exactly is going to be spent on, because the definition again is pretty open. And the second version of the definition groups things more rather than listed individually. Then each college would present their plan to the TEA and then report on that plan after the fiscal year is over. So trying to operationalize, I guess, the statute that was developed is what we're doing today. Again, this is a draft. If the TEA members would like to make any changes, this again will be presented to the Technical Education Authority. If you would like to put it on discussion, we can discuss this again and get input from the second committee members. So there's a lot of flexibility with this. This is a way to make the statute work in our system while meeting its requirements.
Okay. Does the committee have a preference on how to plate this up for the full TEA?
Well, I think clearly she needs to come to the full TEA with this presentation. So there's, full understanding.
I agree. Yes, Dave.
Are we, is she to report that this committee approves of this, or just it's passed through?
I would say pass through.
Okay. Tend to agree. So our action, if you will, is that we've heard your report and recommend its presentation to the full TEA without our having opined on it.
I would agree.
Okay.
Are there any proposed changes or revisions or edits to any of the process or the definitions or anything that this body would like to see? Or would you like us to present it just the way that it was presented today?
The way it was presented today.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you. If that's all, then we are down to a reminder about our next meeting, which is Thursday, the 5th. And there's no other business before the committee, then I think we can adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Very good. The meeting is adjourned and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.